Welcome back, guys. So, in this module, we're going to look at what are types and what are different types of types available in TypeScript. So, this video is about a brief introduction about types. So, let's look at the formal definition of types and try to understand what do we mean by the term type in TypeScript. So, a type is a definition that is assigned to a value, and then that defines the things that you can do or you cannot do with that kind of value. Just so that it makes more sense, let's have a look at some examples and try to understand what do we mean by this definition. So here's the first example. Over here we have a variable called first name, and it has been assigned a type of string. Now, the first name variable would always be a string. Now, this defines what you can do and what you cannot do with the variable first name. So, for example, since the variable first name is of the type string, you can use all string methods on the variable first name. So, for example, here I'm trying to calculate the length of the string or first name using the length method. Now, this is possible and TypeScript would not throw an error because TypeScript knows that the first name variable is of the type string and all string methods can be called on the first name variable. Now, this defines what you can do with this kind of type. Since first name is defined as a string, it also defines what you cannot do with this kind of a variable. Now, you cannot call number methods on the first name variable because it is of the type string. So over here, if I try to calculate the exponential value of first name, TypeScript will throw an error. It will say that you cannot call number methods on a type which is of the type string. So looking at the definition once again, a type is a definition assigned to a value and defines the things that you can do or cannot do with that kind of value. Now here we can look at another example. Let's look at another case where a type defines what you can do with that value. So for example, here I have a constant called sequence, and this sequence constant is of the type of array of numbers. So sequence will always have an array of numbers, right? So I have assigned it a value of array of numbers. Now I can loop through an array of numbers using for each method, and TypeScript will not throw an error because TypeScript knows that sequence is of the type array and array can be looped using for each method. So this is a perfect example of the things you can do with this kind of type. Now let's look at another example. Now here we are looking at a scenario where TypeScript is telling us the things that we cannot do with a particular type. So for example, here I have a variable called user, and this user is of the type of object. So this is an object literal syntax that you use in order to define a variable which contains an object. So this variable user will always be an object, and this object contains these properties. So right now it has a name property which is mark, the value is mark, and then it has a location property and its value is London. Now if I try to iterate through the user object using the for each method, TypeScript will throw an error because the objects cannot be iterated using the for each method. It's the arrays that can be iterated using for each method. So TypeScript would not let you do something like this and hence end up avoiding errors. So it clearly tells you that you cannot do this kind of an operation with the user object. Now let's look at a hierarchy of available types in TypeScript. So this table is for your reference, and these are the kind of types that we are going to learn throughout this module. So we are going to understand each one of these types in this particular module. Now most of these types are already available in JavaScript and you would be aware of these types. But some of these types aren't, such as enums, tuples, void. So we would go through all of these types in this particular module and try to understand what each of these type means and how you can use them in TypeScript. So that's all for the basic introduction of types. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.